Welcome to episode 4 of Launching Your Business in 3 Days. Kent Giger, good to see you.
Hey, thanks for letting me come on.
Hey, you're welcome. I don't know why I'm saying you're welcome. I should be thanking you.
This is
So
great. This is fun.
this is, and I think this is a really exciting episode because this, to me at least, feels like this is a little bit more where rubber hits the road. So far, if we're following along in this order, we've done a lot of thinking, a lot of strategizing. And for people like me who just want to get going and take some action, this is where it hits home with me. It's like, yes, I get to start building a website.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot of fun because you put up the website and you're like, hey, people can find me now, right?
Yeah, and
So
it's something to
the
show.
world.
Before, it seems like it's a lot of ideation, which is good, and you need to do that, especially to get a good website up. But it's a moment of pride too, that you're like, oh, I get to develop this thing, and by the end of it, I have something to show for all of this thought I've put into my business.
That's right. Yeah, you're bringing all your brand, all your thought processes, all your designs, your logo, everything together, and it's launching a website is huge. It's like basically, I'm doing this now. Let's just do it.
It's also
I'm serious.
vulnerable. Yeah. And I think I want to hit something on that vein of things too before we dive into like the logistics of a website. But it's vulnerable, and it's okay. I liked this quote that someone told me recently, and I wish I could remember who it was by. But like, if your first iteration isn't embarrassing, you're waiting too long.
It's very true. Yeah, if you're perfect, you launch too late, basically. So
yeah.
Even if you look at the history, say like Facebook, when they first launched their iOS app, it was hideous. Like, it was just basically text and blue and gray, right? And then you scrolled and it had a little picture of somebody. And then you look at their app now and it is like intense, like crazy. So you will do many and change your website multiple times, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. So
yeah, I
expect it to happen.
My first job out of college, I worked at Qualtrics. And I remember a company meeting. We were about to launch the new website. And before unveiling it, they had taken all these screenshots of the old website, which is fun to do. So keep that in mind, right? You build this, make sure to take a screenshot of it, because it'll be so fun to see that evolution. And it was so cool to see what Qualtrics' first website looked like, and then how it became what it is today. It was fun.
Yeah, and with new technologies, cooler things become easier and faster and better, and so you will change. So expect to change.
Yeah. And it is nice because with tools and resources we have today, we can be saved a little bit of embarrassment of having our website maybe look like, they did in the 90s. We've got a lot of templates and easy to design things, and things we've been talked about in Gianni's episode in terms of like, if you're not a designer, like there's still tools out there to help you make something look good. And taking our style guide, our colors and stuff, it's easy to then have that, and with tools we have today, have that reflected on your website.
Yes, it's very true. Like, in my opinion, after my 15 years of my career, like developing websites specifically, like it has come a long way, and it's never been this easy to launch a website. Like, I remember when I was building websites when I was like 14 years old, and it was hard. And then, I did college, came out, and I was like pumping out websites, and then you got all these other companies that are helping people do it. And I think it's great. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody should get on the web and can be found, and you can start a business and you can make money. So.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's dive in. The first thing that you wanted to talk about was determining the primary purpose of your website.
Yeah, it's super important to understand, like, why why do I even need a website? Or do
Yeah.
I need a website? Or can my social accounts work for this, right? So
Okay.
like, can I just sell on Instagram or something like that? Or do I actually need a physical website for
Yeah.
people to find me and certain types of things? So I would say everybody should have a website. And the main reason is because, Google is everywhere. We all know how to use it. Everybody does it. And so it's important to be found on Google. So
Yeah.
you determine your primary purpose of this website is like, do I need to sell things? Do I not need to sell things? Do I just need it so I can be found? Is certainly huge and beneficial to be on the web. So you decide those types of things. What's it going to be used for? How often will it be used for? Do I have to update it often? Am I just writing a blog, or am I selling a product? So it's super important to figure out what your main purpose is for your website.
Yeah, and I'd say too that an umbrella statement where all purposes probably fall under this is the fact that most websites, maybe like 98%, exist to get leads, right? Or to get exposure, brand awareness. And that I qualify leads with those because of like what you're saying about just being on Google, right?
Yeah.
Your website can oftentimes be, and we've talked about this in a few of these episodes already, but how it takes a few touches, 7 to 10 or so, for someone to then engage with you as a business, purchase from you.
Mm-hmm.
And your website is a big one of those.
It's huge. So you just think of like what you do on a daily basis when you just even go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
You'll see a company for the first time. We all have mobile phones, right? And we'll probably look up any number of businesses, even while we're in that business.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it is super important that you are online, because if you're not and people can't find you, they're like, wait, are you legitimate? Like, I can't find you. I don't see you. Like, what's going on? Right. And so there's trust factors with being online. And we trust a little bit more if you're online. And then there's reviews and there's, lots of other things. But it certainly is important because, you get that brand awareness. Potentially the leads will come through once they come across your brand a few more times. Or
I mean, you're hoping to bring people in, and you can execute on that in so many different ways, whether that be by having products to buy that is put in a shopping cart, whether that be by having a newsletter, whether that be by, I don't know, do you have a few others that come to mind?
So to me, the first things that come to mind is like when you're just trying to get it up, let's say you're not selling a product, you're just trying to create brand awareness. It's just, you probably want some form of your call to action, your CTA, of where either people subscribe to a newsletter or you're posting on a blog post where they can subscribe to your feed, right? And then you'll link that up with social media, and you'll try to have feeds where other people are. So the other important part is you have your website where everybody is. Everybody's on the internet, but then you also need to know and find out where your target market is and more likely coming from, right? So is that Facebook? Is that Instagram? Is that word of mouth? Is that your business cards, right? And then you can kind of push your website around those types of things based on where your target market potentially will come from first.
Yeah, and I think
then try to capture them in some way.
Yeah, and I think that's
you need a goal.
Yeah, and that drives home a point that Maria made in her episode of really defining your customer journey, and being specific about it. All of the things along the way, the steps people need to take in order to engage with you, to complete a process of purchasing through, if it's like a setup process as well beyond purchasing, assessing all of those things is so important, not just for customer experience, but also helping you, especially because that front end is helping you understand that buyer persona a bit more, like we talked about in Jake's episode. I mean, all of these things are really starting to come to a head.
No, it's super important. It's very important. And you've discovered that customer journey. And then the web can help you, help you figure out how that is working, right?
Yeah.
So it's super important to use some of those tools like Google Analytics, Google Search Console, right? So you know how people are interacting. So if you just like have a travel blog and you just want to post like, hey, here's my travels, right? What would be your goal for that type of thing? In my opinion, it'd probably be like, I want people to share my content. So your CTA, your call to action, will most likely be trying to get people to share your blog posts, to share your images across the web so that you can grow your brand and your influence that way, right? But if you're selling a product, then your main goal is your homepage is to point people through your website to purchase that product, right? So that's your customer journey. So whatever it is, whether it's just I want people to read my blog, how do I find more people? Getting the people that are reading it to share it, or purchasing a product, or collecting, email addresses, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And one of the biggest thing is, right, a domain name is super important. So usually you want something that people can read and can spell, right? So you have all these companies that come up with like crazy names and, right, so they can purchase the domain name, but you have to also understand, like, most of us are like, how do you spell that? I don't, right? And so like, it is important, I have found, especially when you're small and you're just getting started, to find a domain name that can spell and that's easy to remember, right?
Yeah.
So
not too long. Question with that too. I'd love your thoughts on purchasing a domain name that isn't .com.
So this is a really good question, and I get it quite a bit actually. So I would recommend a .com.
Yeah.
So the world is moving away from that. However, there's power behind .coms only because of the interaction that you find with people, right? So you're like, oh, hey, my website, go to my website, kentgigger.com, right? It's just, or Kent Gigger. And most people will assume .com.
Yeah.
Right? And breaking out of that is not too hard. So I've made some stuff that I own tons of domain names, right? .ios, .dev, like a few .nets and .cos. So if you have, and it does depend on your type of company. And people are like, well, if I'm a charitable organization, should I buy a .org? It can give you a slightly more trust factor, right? Because people are accustomed to those types of things. There is power behind your domain names. So Google, if you are a .gov, which you can't purchase unless you are a government entity, like, you get so much power behind those types of domain names. So .coms usually have more power than other ones, but you can grow power in other domain names. But I would recommend, if you can, try to find a .com.
Yeah.
It makes it easier, and Google is more built around those types of domain names. Okay. It's not impossible, but it does give you a tiny bit more push.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got our domain name. Then we want to have an email address associated with that domain.
Yeah. So that's super important too, because it gives you credibility, right? It's just like, hey, you can email me at something example.com, right? Yeah. Yeah, me at kentgigger.com or whatever it is. You totally can. And what I found is, for the easiest for the people that I've set up, is Google Domains is super easy to set up, not only email address, but to purchase domains. And they are just so fast, and they broke it down really easy. So as a non-developer type person, I recommend Google Domains, mostly because a lot of us are connected to Google in some shape or form. And Google, most of us are using Gmail already. A lot of us are. It's either Gmail or Outlook. Microsoft Hotmail, Outlook, right? So it's super easy to connect and forward your email addresses, and you can create a domain name, kentgigger.com, and you can have Google will quickly set up forwards, or you can purchase Google's business email service. So it's like $5 to $10 a month, depending on like your tier that you choose. But really, you don't need it. And when you're getting started, you just need, me at kentgeiger.com, and that can forward to your free Gmail account, and you can respond back. And Google Domains makes it super easy to set that up.
Right. And it's funny too, funny and also cool and empowering / something that really is in our control is this aspect of trust that you talked about, where, and it might seem like maybe it's not in our control, like, do people trust us? But like all of these little things, like you don't really realize just how much they do build up that trust factor and how important that is. I think, reviews is the best example of it, that we would prefer to rely on the crowd of strangers online versus our neighbor and our cousin telling us about something. So if this outweighs those two people, we're going to trust that. And that feeling is so important to evoke within our customers and to put off a professional air. And although we're doing this in 3 days, like there's still, it's not hard to wrangle that professional air with a lot of the tools that we have today.
Yeah, it's come a long way. It's been a lot easier. So, and it does give you that small sense of credibility, like you said, a little bit more. So I did set up a client that they've been in business for like 10 years, and they were using just basic Gmail accounts, right? And it does help you grow a little bit if you have your professional domain name, because you can move that. You can move your domain name to a different host or a different service, and it won't stop the email coming from you. For example, if you get lost or locked out of your free Gmail account for some reason, you can't move that. You have to rely on Google for that. But if you have your own domain name and you own your own email stuff, if something happens, you can point that email to another free Gmail account or whatnot in no time at all, and your email will not stop, right? So it also helps in security reasons as well to set up an email address around your domain.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Definitely awesome.
Next step.
Yeah. So choosing how and where to build your website, right? So you have your domain name, you set up your email address, and then it's like, where do you want to build your website, or how do you want to build your website? Yeah. And this kind of goes back to like your primary purpose of your website. Do you have to sell something? Is it a blog, right? Is it just like a landing page type subscriber service, right? So there is tons and tons of options. Like you can basically Google where or how to build a website, and you'll come up with tons of services that will allow you to sign up for stuff. So, I mean, just to name a few, you have WordPress, and WordPress has a public version and a private version. So by public, it means like they will take control of your whole website and you just write stuff and sell stuff. And then they also have a private version where you can take and you can give that to a developer, and he can build you something massive, right? Depending on your purpose. And your time frame that you want. So this is 3 days. So most likely the one that's hosted by WordPress.com. And then there's Squarespace, there's Shopify, there's Wix. And if you are a photographer, right, there's a bunch around that just focus around there. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. I forgot it. It was in my head. But there's like literally, depending on your industry, you can search and find something that can be specific for you.
Yeah.
Right. So even Google has a service for Blogger, Blogger.com for just writing blogs, right? And you just need to write a blog, and it's free, and they'll put it up. So
to that point, right, it's probably not a bad idea and we've referenced taking a look at your competition all along the way, from writing your business plan to looking at their brand guides and stuff, their logos and all of that jazz. But it wouldn't be a bad idea too to look at the people who are playing in the space that you want to play in, and maybe scroll down and see if it's saying powered by.
Yeah,
and they're a dominant player in that space.
right. No, that's very true. Yeah. That's a great point. What are other people doing in your same space, and what type of services are they using in that same space? My thing, whatever you use or choose, make sure to test it and that it works on mobile, because we are definitely going and turning to a mobile first community. Even if majority of your target market is on the desktop, for example, like Weave, right? So managing Weave's website and all that kind of stuff is super important, because most of them are people working during the hours and checking out their website. So they're coming from desktop and they're looking at our website and desktop. It's just super important that we do that. We look at our target market and we say, okay, we're B2B a lot. And so that's where our main focus is. However, we still get tons of traffic on mobile. And it's super important that your website will load on mobile, will load on somebody's cell phone tower, and not just like on their Wi-Fi, right? So it's very important that your website works and is readable on phones. I cannot stress that enough. Small businesses especially, because more often than not, your target market's going to at least see you first on their phone, and then they'll probably go home and look up you on the computer. So definitely make sure that any of these platforms, these website builders that you choose, can definitely supports mobile.
Yeah.
And does really well at that, right? So
I'd even add to that, like if you see in your future any chat things or site intercepts, pop-up things, whenever you're looking at those as well, make sure that they work on mobile. I've had a few where and I can't close out of the darn pop-up and actually look at the website, and I get so frustrated.
Yeah, and you usually leave, right? So, and that's why it's super important to anything you do on your site, like just look at it on your phone, look at it on your computer, and be like, at least do that bare minimum.
Yeah.
So that it works. And all your pop-ups that pop up, can people close them out, right?
Yeah.
Or there's any number of tests you can do for that type of stuff, but it's super important. Yes. You want people to see your website. You don't want that ad to pop up first. You want them to see your website, and then when they've been on your site for a little bit of time, try to grab them there.
Yeah. So the next step is kind of nice, because it's whatever website builder you choose, they'll probably walk you through this, and that is picking a template.
Yeah. And this is where it goes, like you said, like you look at your competitors and try to do something maybe similar, or if you're out there, like try something completely new. And it's so awesome that there's templates.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, my job is based around building these types of templates, right? For the web, right? I've built quite a few. And it is so awesome that you can just purchase something. For example, WordPress, you can buy hundreds of thousands of them, or other platforms offer templates that work specifically for their platform, and then they allow you to edit them. Right? Excuse me. So they give you a starting point. It's great.
Yeah, and I think this is another point to remember. Something Jake said about, are you defining yourself as a Nordstrom or a Walmart?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
And that and your brand, your colors and stuff, the feel you're wanting to evoke, how you're translating those emotional words, sentences that you've used to define your business into the visual of your brand. All of those go into kind of helping you narrow down from those templates, because there can be a lot, but make sure that template coincides with those factors as well.
Yeah, and you already did all that brand discovery. Like, does it speak to you, right? Is this something you're gonna love as well? Because you're gonna look at this all the time. So you are the brand in essence in this small launch of this website. So definitely take that into consideration. And you already figured out your target market. Like, is this something that they'll love, or is this gonna be like, oh my gosh, like flashing blue lights? Like, don't do that. But is this going to work for my brand? Totally. And the cool thing about it is that there's so many different templates. If something doesn't work, you can change it, and you definitely will. And don't worry that don't worry about that. You probably will go through several different templates in the life of your business, and you'll do a rebrand and all these types of things, because you're going to learn. And that's what the important thing is like, it's okay. You're just trying to get it going. You're going to get it up. And then you will learn from that. And these templates are helping you get up there quickly and fast, and then you can iterate and change.
Right. And that's our point. We're sticking to this 3-day timeline. We're going to have a little bit of that embarrassment, and we're going to embrace it.
Yeah, seriously. And it's great. You did it. I mean, to me, that is huge.
Yeah.
You got it done. That's super important.
The next few on your list are really interesting. How would you start going through those?
Yeah. So obviously you did all your thought thinking. You're picking out what type of industry you're going into, and you want to populate your website with this type of content. So you looked at your competitors, you looked at what you want to do to try to differentiate yourself. Like, do you need an about page? Do you need a contact us page? Right? How many product pages do you need? And you need to write specific information based around these types of things. So for example, if don't do this, but if you had a competitor and then you just copied their whole website word for word and colors and everything, it ultimately won't help you at all, right? So Google already recognizes them as the leader because their site was first, right? And so it's super important that you populate your business website, your website, with content that is around you. And even if you're selling a similar product to this other competitor or multiple other competitors, you have things that set you apart, and it's super important to try to focus around those types of things.
Right. Well, and I think the big thing with that too is something that Jake covered, and that's the fact that we're wanting to be authentic. And a lot of people, I feel like I've seen this more and more with emerging companies, products, services. It's not just the product or service we're buying anymore. We're buying into a culture. You think of Allbirds, I think, is a really good example. The way they talk about the way their shoes are made and what they're made from, and in their commercials, it's like, come meet the sheep that grew the wool, if that's even proper language. They grew. I grow my own hair. They grow the wool.
I guess.
Same thing.
Yeah. No, it definitely is very important. Yeah. And bring yourself out on your website, right? So, like, what type of language are you going to write your website in, right? Is it first person? Is it third person, right? And like, what is your persona? Like, how is your brand going to be going forward? And don't think you can't change this, right? I can't iterate that enough. Like, it will change. But going started, you want a good personalized population of your site, right? So it's important for certain things for people to be able to find you. If you're a local business, you should be having an address on your website and a link to Google Maps or something similar, so that people can quickly find you when they're out and about on mobile, and they're like, oh, there's your address right there. Okay, get directions, click, go, boom, and they're there, right? So
so many people are using, like, I do this all the time, at least. And I know there's statistics behind it, but are opening Google Maps and doing blank near me.
Right. Yeah. No, it is the number one searched object in search, is like, I need to find Chinese food near me. I need to find
I'm on the
sprinklers near me. Right. So it's super important that you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that goes in, like, as you get better at your website and, integrating Google Search Console into your website so that they know that you're there, and then they can index you and find you. So that goes along with lots of Google tools, right? But the important part is, when you're getting up in these 3 days, is if you're a local business, yes, have your address on there, have a link to Google Maps for people to be able to find you. And in that case, is you'll most likely, if you're having that link, Google is going to be able to find you, because you'll have to register your business with Google for them to find you on Google Maps. And it's very important for local businesses.
Yeah. And I'd almost have put that step in making a business plan, but at the same time, like maybe that's something that goes in hand with building your website, because there are a lot of things you can't do in setting up your Google page until you have a domain name or an
Correct.
address or an email, and so once this domain name is and your website is set up, that's not a bad idea to then just go straight there, put in your address, put in the phone number that you want to be associated with the business, put in your website,
Yep.
and then find those ways to then put that back on the Google Maps aspect back on your website too.
Yeah, exactly. And at least you just have your address just to get started. People can copy and paste that into Google or into their map system or
make
whatever.
it, hyperlink it, right? So when they click on your address, it opens up Maps.
Right, and that's where that registration with Google comes in. So yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say move on to the next one, but if you're not ready.
Yeah, no, yeah, I was about to. So we're good. Okay. And the next step is basically like other apps or extra functionality for your website, right? So most websites, if you want to, for example, let's say your call to action, your CTA is, I need email addresses, right? I want people to subscribe to what I'm talking about here. And so you usually have to use a third party for that, unless you're going to be a developer and store all this information, right? So there is tons of programs out there that you can use. Or let's say you're a local company and you need to take payments, and what's the easiest way to take payments? It's like over text messages or something like that. And that's like something like Weave takes into that type of stuff. Like, hey, you have a website, but you also need to potentially take payments, but you want to make it easier for your customers. Like, what are things that you can do, other third-party apps that can also contribute and connect to your service and make it easier for you and easier for your consumer? So, there's hundreds and thousands of apps, and we know this with our smartphones and these types of things, right? Like,
and if it gets overwhelming these first few days, don't worry about it. Like we've said, you'll revisit this, or you'll find, the point is just to get off the ground, right? And you'll probably find, maybe even within the first week, like, oh, I need this thing because I'm already lacking that or whatever. And you can go back and add it.
Right, exactly. And that's perfectly fine. And you'll realize like, oh, wait, I'm missing this. Exactly. As you go through it, somebody will ask for something and you'll be like, I can't do that. And you'll go and Google search it and you'll find something that can work for your situation in that time. Yeah. So the biggest thing is also, like we talked about this a little bit, is like, make your site searchable. So and that's where Google, or if you feel your target market's on Microsoft computers, there's potential that you need to register with Bing, but mostly Google, right? They're huge, especially if you're in the US. They are ginormous, and you want to be found and indexed by Google. So a lot of these web builders that you're choosing from already have a platform to help you do that, right? Yeah. So it's super important that you set that kind of stuff up and work towards that going forward.
Okay.
So that one I can't stress enough. Like that whole concept of if you build it, they will come. It's not true. So you need to build it, and then you need to tell people that you're there and how to find you. You need to help them find you. So
I mean, and this is the sales aspect. We're not necessarily talking about sales in this aspect of launching your business in 3 days. That's kind of more phase 2. Once you've got all these things decided and up and you can start promoting them. But you have to talk about it to everyone, because I mean, you're not going to get 100% conversion rate. You're not even going to get 50%. For every 10 people you talk to, 5 people are not going to necessarily go and look it up. But the more you talk about it, the more you put it out there, like you're saying, the more you're utilizing these things to optimize your website, the more traffic you'll drive.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if I had to break it down in the simplest things, is easy domain name for people to be able to find you, a simple template, and that can work on both mobile and desktop, right? Something that obviously around what your brand was, and make sure it's fast and that Google can find you, right? And then you have a clear call to action of what you want people to do when they're on your website, whether it's click on your address to go find you, to come to your store, subscribe to your email newsletter, to share your posts, right? Whatever that you worked out coming up to this point, like your clear call to action your website is doing. Yeah, those 5 things are super important.
I'm gonna make you pause.
Okay.
Because I have a guest that's gonna come on to the podcast.
Sure. All right.
Say, this is what working from home looks like. Daddy has his headphones in and mommy's on a podcast.
Hi.
See, we were ready
up from nap time.
Yeah, up from nap time. Oh, there's a good smile. That's a good smile. We're almost done. You want to talk with Kent? I go into mom voice like real quick.
Hey, I know. I totally get it. I know how that works. So.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll wrap this up with recommendations of tools to use. I mean, we've talked about website builders, but you also have a few others, yes?
Let me go.
Google Domains. Or
yeah, so I just closed it. Let me go back to my message. Yeah, I can mention a bunch of them again. So.
I'm sure you thought the interview was over when I said that.
No, we're good. We're good. We can keep going. I don't have a problem. Let's see. Command K. Yeah. I mean, I can just reiterate a bunch of the ones that I talked about already.
Yeah,
so
let's
probably what I'll do.
And then the ones you recommend. So we've got you know, the idea of just searching by your industry, looking at what your competitors are doing, and if there's nothing at the bottom, it might be a custom website, you know, WordPress.
Yeah.
But some of those ones with templates, if you're wanting to do the quick and dirty, right, stick to this 3-day challenge. We've got Wix and Squarespace and Shopify.
Yeah, Squarespace. Yeah, I don't know, I'm just writing down my thoughts. Yeah, cool. Can do. Ready, set, go.
Oh, I was going the whole time.
Oh, you're going. Oh, well, that's my bad then. Definitely keep this one in there. Keep that part in there.
We're not editing this out.
Yeah, cool. That's fine. We don't have to.
That's gone.
Yeah, I mean,
so funny.
There's so many tools. There's like so many tools you can use, and you can get drowned out.
I was just gonna say, like, do you recommend like doing spending time comparing? Would you say like set a time limit because there's so many tools, or do you say, you know, just pick one and go with it? Like, you're gonna end up revisiting it anyway because we're sticking to this 3-day. Well, what do you recommend?
Yeah. So, for example, if you really, because you're trying to launch a website or a whole business in 3 days, right? I would just say you go the quickest way to get you going. So I've launched thousands of websites, I feel, and maybe it's not that many, but it seems like a lot. Yeah. And I have constantly changed them, and I've helped tons of clients change website, templates and websites and services all the time. It is not very uncommon because you'll grow to a certain point. And even when it comes to like Weave, right? Just me controlling their website there, I have moved and upgraded over my 4 years just working at Weave like 6 times. So, and we just did it like 2 months ago, right? So it really does depend on a lot of factors, right? How much traffic you're getting. Can your website handle the amount of stuff that's happening, right? So, and if you have development power, right, then, or if you have a lot of money and you're just like, well, I want to take my time, I'm gonna, give a bid for this type of stuff, then it could be far more complex and take a lot longer to launch. But you're trying to just get it up. If you're trying to get it up, it just like Google Domains. buy your domain name, right? Super easy. You can set up in that same instance to forward your domain address and set up an email account, right? Super easy. And then when it comes to sending that or pointing, what they call is like pointing your domain name to Squarespace or Wix or Shopify, right? Or any number of these accounts, depending on what your needs are, you can quickly and easily do that. And a lot of times, even Google domains have like integration features where you're just like, oh, I'm using this company. Okay, syncs, right?
Yeah.
And it's super easy. So I would recommend you start out that way, and then you go from there. And as your needs grow, if you're all of a sudden getting like millions of people coming to your website, then you will grow. You will understand that, like, wow, I need to grow.
And maybe part of that is that we start with these things because we're sticking to the 3 days, and you build in like your year plan that, hey, I want to grow out of my website by X date. Yeah, is that funny?
Yeah.
And you start as you are gaining momentum and bringing in, having cash flow, you set aside cash for someone to build you a nicer website. And that's not a bad idea either. But right now, be okay with just
getting up, having your few products listed, and you're good, right? So I mean, there's even like one I haven't even thought of, like Etsy, right? If you're just like starting out and you got something going on, you just need to test your product at all too, and you can brand that around you as well. So
that's not a bad idea.
Like it's you're launching this website and your business in 3 days, and you're just definitely trying to make sure that your brand and your company is a viable thing that people are going to buy it. And then you got to understand that you need people to go to your site too, right? So it's super important to connect to Google Search Console. Is probably your next biggest thing. So you have your domain, your email address, your website's going, and then you want people to find you. You want Google to, what they call is, index your site or read your website, right? Yeah. So you want to connect Google Search Console, and that's super important.
Yep.
And then you start selling your product and you start pushing it everywhere and trying to funnel people down to whatever your call to action is on your site, whatever you want people to do on your site. Yeah. You just keep trying to get better and better and better at that.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good point too. I know, like, I mean, even here at Weave, right, one of our big projects has been like, the more traffic we can drive to the website, the better. Once you get it set up, that's your next goal, right? And maybe we do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, like next big, huge steps. Like, you have a lot of traffic. What do you do now, right? Why aren't they converting, or whatever that is? So, and then there's tons and tons of tools around that to help you better understand all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, and hopefully by then you're making tons of money.
There you go. Okay. Thanks, Ken.
For sure. All right.
Thanks for listening to that episode of Weave Connected. Make sure to hit subscribe down below so you get notified of any time we add a new episode. We'll catch you next time. Brands that we highly recommend as inspirational as well. So thank you, Audrey.
Yeah, thank you.